Hello and welcome back to Sydney International Airport for the first time in over 2 years. Now later this evening I'm flying off to Dallas Fort Worth in the United States on board what is one of the longest commercial flights in the world. It's around 15 hours with a distance of just under 14,000 kilometers, so thankfully I'm flying in business class on board a Qantas Boeing 787. So let's check in and I'll show you what it's like to fly in 2022 now that we don't really care about COVID anymore.
I make videos about planes. Sometimes I'm flying them to destinations around the world, and in other videos I'm crawling through significant and historical civil and military aircraft. If you're into these types of videos, make sure you check out my channel, subscribe and get the latest updates on Instagram and Facebook. Well, we kinda still care a little bit about COVID, so the first step is getting a negative COVID test, which can be taken at any time the previous day before your flight. Otherwise, you can get it done at the airport and it'll usually be back within 90 minutes. I got mine done the previous day simply for peace of mind, so I went straight for the check-in desks. This process was quite a bit longer as you had to show proof of a negative COVID swab, vaccination and a few other details. Then it was to the normal check-in desks to drop off your bags and get the boarding passes, and then you're off to security and immigration. The usual express pathway for business passengers remains closed, although that wasn't a problem as there was literally no queue at either customs or security. And then we were airside, and it's so good to see the overpriced chocolates, perfume, booze and electronic goods once again. Now Qantas have kept the business class lounge closed, so everyone who would otherwise have been let in through either travel class or airline status is now sent to the first class lounge, and it was great getting back in there once again. So normally you'd pull a left at the top of the escalators, but this time you're going straight ahead. This living wall on the left is a beautiful feature in the midst of a concrete jungle, and I can assure you that the plants are all real. Having spent the last 6 months working in the Australian outback, it's so nice seeing green again. And on the right hand side is a great view of the airport apron, including this Emirates Boeing 777. I went for a quick wander around to take in the atmosphere, which for us travelling enthusiasts and frequent flyers is really something you can't put into words. Then I found a table and sat back for the wonderful table service, an a la carte menu which I'll include at the very end of the video, and once again a fantastic view of this Airbus A330. It was around 1:30 in the afternoon, so I ordered some lunch. First up, I had a brioche, leg ham and Gruyere toasted sandwich with rocket and lemon, followed up by a signature salt and pepper squid with cabbage salad, green chili dipping sauce and aioli. This was washed down with some grape juice. And finally, for dessert, another signature dish with pavlova, with seasonal fruit, mascarpone and Persian fairy floss. But to be honest, and while the food and drinks were great, the highlight for me was the incredible views of the airport apron. Now I've said it before, but it is so good seeing international travel returning to normal. For a country like Fiji, which relies so heavily on tourism, it was great to see this Fiji Airways A330 heading to Nandi, and this 787 off to South Africa. There was still a few hours before boarding, so I went and found another seat and sat back and continued to enjoy the view. And here is our aircraft arriving, a Boeing 787-9, registration Victor Hotel Zulu November Kangaroo. The Dreamliners now make up a majority of the Qantas International fleet and are a modern and comfortable way to fly. It was eventually time to board, so I took the scenic route to the gate. All flights to the US have added security, so I didn't film too much of that part, so let's get straight on board. Entering via door 2 left, I turned to left into the forward business cabin to find my seat 5 Kangaroo. The seats are all in a 1-to-1 layout, with the middle 2 being more sociable if you're travelling as a pair. Now the seats alternate between a more public and a more private option, as you can see in this footage from a previous flight. Now I'll check out this seat in a little more detail, starting with the individual overhead air vents providing a cool breeze onto my head. In front there's the in-flight entertainment screen, which I'll look at afterwards. On the left of that is a magazine holder, and swinging around is their fold-out table, which felt sturdy enough. As you can see, I've already made use of the large storage ledge, and under here is a in-flight entertainment remote and a mirror. Here's the buttons for the seat, lighting and massage feature. Up here is more storage space and perfect spots for books, passports and laptops. There's also room for a bottle and the headphones. And here's the universal power plug, USB and a headphone jack. This really is a great setup if you carry as much rubbish as I do. And there's plenty of legroom with great views of the engine. While they don't have doors like in some other business suites, I find them perfectly private enough. As you can see in this sweeping footage, you can't actually see any other sitting passengers. Now here's the amenity kits, which are inspired by designs from the 1960s and all a part of the Qantas 100th birthday celebrations. I reckon they look great and the quality is decent enough to keep using them as toiletry bags in the future. And there's also a pen, which is exciting. And of course some iconic Qantas pyjamas, which I'll be modelling later. There was a round of welcoming drinks, with a choice of either sparkling water or champagne. Boarding was completed and we backed out and watched the safety video, which again celebrates 100 years of the flying kangaroo.
Innovation, Australian spirit.
This is an Avro 504 biplane. Made from timber and cabins. You're flying with a Qantas Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Sounds a bit faster than this one, girl.
Now unfortunately the sun was shining right in my GoPro's face, so the view on takeoff wasn't great, but that engine spool up really made up for it. We swung around towards the east and then started our journey across the Pacific Ocean. It's incredible to think that we'll be crossing the world's biggest ocean in a single hop and in complete comfort. Now the 787 has these electronic window dimmers which are novel, but I'm not sure how practical they are. They can be controlled centrally and locked by the crew, and as you can see with this footage I took later in the flight, they don't actually completely block the sun, which is an issue if you're a ginger like me. Anyway, I got myself comfortable and sat back to watch some TV. So it's a 15.5-inch touchscreen which is responsive and has decent image quality. This red arrow opens up a flight map if you want to see where you are in the world, and there's also an okay selection of movies and TV shows. It was about 6 in the evening, so it was time to get dressed for dinner. So here's the bathroom, which is adequate enough, although not the most spacious in the sky. Next up was a round of drinks and room temperature nuts, and I went with the Qantas Signature Spritz, which the press release told me features Australian botanicals including Davidson plum and finger lime. It was alright and tasted like a non-specific fruitiness and sugar. And there was a great view as the sun set behind us. Oh, and by the way, these dark marks are meant to be there on the plates. I'm not sure whose idea they were, but they are clean even if they don't look like it. Now this was really cool, and I've never seen a storm quite like it. We deviated slightly to the left and went around this light show, but what a cool sight, and again it really highlights the wonder of modern flight. And here's dinner. Now other than masks, the only other COVID change was the food being delivered on trays, which slightly reduces crew contact, but certainly not a big issue. First up, I went with the salad of white cut chicken with wombok, daikon, shallots, sesame and black vinegar dressing, which was served with bread and green leaf salad. Now, after a few glasses of wine, I tend to get quite philosophical. Have you ever wondered how long it must take filming these nature shows to actually capture this monkey jumping right in front of the camera? They must sit there for weeks just waiting to capture, well, anything. Anyway, for the main, I went with a Humpty Doo barramundi with jasmine rice, seasonal greens and sesame seeds, and it all tasted really good. This was matched with a Shaw and Smith Sauvignon Blanc from the Adelaide Hills. And then for dessert, I went with a selection of cheese and accompaniments, matched with a dessert wine from regional New South Wales. After all of that stress, it was time for a nap, and I converted my seat into a bed, and there was a thin topper which goes on as well. I think I napped for a few hours, but I never sleep well on planes, so after a few hours I was up to watch the sunrise. Now a special mention has to go to the overhead air vents, as the flow was very strong. Now I find sleeping in a hot aircraft cabin near impossible, so I'd rather be a little bit chilly and then wrap myself up in the blanket. Since I had many hours of video editing ahead of me, I ordered a coffee which came with some snacks, followed by another coffee and then a selection of fruit. Then came the proper breakfast, which I had a little earlier as the crew could see that I was awake. Now I went with the Brook Farm wild berry granola with the Davidson plum, cherries, blueberries, pecans, almonds and Australian bush honey, although it did seem a little light on the fruit. Even though I just listed all those, there didn't actually seem to be much in it. It also came with a bacon, egg and cheddar roll with Neil Perry's barbecue sauce, and that tasted great. And here we are crossing the Mexican coastline at a steady 1,083 kilometers an hour at an altitude of 12.5 kilometers. And eventually we started our gradual descent down into Texas. So, how was the flight? Overall, it was perfectly fine. I'll start with the negatives. There is no Wi-Fi, not even to purchase, which seems a little behind the time. I mean, it's nice to have a forced holiday for 15 hours, but the ability to stream your own entertainment or do businessy stuff would help deflect from the next issue, which I thought was limited entertainment. Maybe my interests are increasingly obscure, but nothing really jumped out at me, and I did wonder if there had been more movies in the past. But at least otherwise, the screen was crisp and the headphones were comfortable. Now I really like the seat itself. I think it's private enough and has plenty of storage and workspace. I was able to keep my backpack down next to me the entire flight and sit with a vast array of stuff all within arm's reach. The mattress itself seemed thick enough when I had a nap even when I was sleeping on my side. The food was tasty and came in decent portions, although the granola needed a little more fruit or maybe sultanas or something like that. I like the new amenity kits and they're a step up quality wise from the previous ones. And the crew were friendly, always happy to help and promptly serving and then removing meals. I recognise a few of them from previous international trips and it's great to see things returning to normal. As so happens, we had favourable weather conditions, so the flight time was only 14 hours and 30 minutes, but it's often longer on the return leg. It certainly feels like a long time in a plane, although I can't complain as I was in business class. So, those are my thoughts, but I'd love to hear on what you think about the Qantas business product over this 14,000 kilometre flight, and how it compares to other airlines. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and check out my channel. If you haven't already, you're welcome to subscribe, as I have a whole barrage of new videos coming from 3 weeks of visiting many aviation and space museums around the United States. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you another time.